Extreme poverty. Extreme poverty is the harshest edge of human survival, defined by living on $3 per person per day as of 2025 after adjusting for local prices. This reflects the World Bank's latest global extreme poverty line, updated using 2021 purchasing power data. At this level, every decision revolves around staying alive until tomorrow. Families survive through subsistence farming, day labor, or scavenging, and even clean water, food, or safe shelter is never guaranteed. Children often walk long distances to collect water or skip school to help their parents earn a few coins. Extreme poverty is most concentrated in sub-Saharan Africa and in fragile or conflict-affected states such as Somalia, Malawi, and Afghanistan, with large vulnerable populations also found in South Asia. For hundreds of millions of people, daily life means choosing between food and medicine and hoping that illness, drought, or bad luck does not erase everything because there is no safety net. Extreme poverty is not just the absence of money, it is the absence of choice. Moderate poverty. Moderate poverty, officially measured by the World Bank's lower middle income poverty line, describes life just above bare survival, where a person lives on roughly $4.20 to $8.30 per day. At this level, people can usually meet basic calorie needs and maintain simple shelter, but life remains fragile and uncertain. A single hospital bill, drought, or job loss can erase months of effort and push them back into extreme poverty. Many families live in crowded informal housing with limited electricity, poor sanitation, and unreliable healthcare. In countries such as Bangladesh, Nigeria, and Nepal, this is where street vendors, garment workers, and day laborers often fall, able to feed their families most days but rarely able to save. Imagine earning enough to buy simple meals and send a child to school, yet one emergency means selling your only bicycle or missing rent. Moderate poverty is survival with a thin layer of stability, where people are not starving but still one crisis away from losing everything they have built. Near poor. The near poor live just beyond the poverty line, typically earning a little over $8.30 per person per day, which corresponds to the World Bank's upper middle income poverty line. They are not starving, but they are not secure. Life feels like walking on a tightrope, where a single illness, job loss, flood, or crop failure can push them back into poverty overnight. Many people in this group live in crowded informal settlements or rural villages in countries such as India, Indonesia, and Kenya, working as factory workers, small farmers, delivery riders, or street food vendors. They often have electricity, mobile phones, and basic schooling for their children, yet they struggle to build any meaningful savings. Picture a household that can afford 3 simple meals today and maybe pay school fees, but still worries about next month's rent, or a family that might have to sell its only motorbike to cover medical bills. This stage is the fragile middle ground between poverty and stability, where progress is visible but easily lost and survival still depends on luck. Lower middle class. The lower middle class, typically earning around $10 to $20 per person per day, represents the first visible stage of stability beyond basic survival. This group is sometimes referred to by development economists as the emerging consumer class. Individuals in this tier, common in fast-growing economies such as Vietnam, the Philippines, and Morocco, and often including factory workers, junior clerks, and service employees, can usually afford consistent meals, pay rent or own a modest home, and send their children to school. They typically have access to electricity, running water, and mobile connectivity, and may own small appliances like a motorbike, refrigerator, or television. However, their progress remains fragile. While they can save a few dollars each month, luxuries such as private healthcare or university education often remain out of reach, and a serious illness or economic downturn could still erase years of effort and push them back toward poverty. Middle class. The middle class, typically earning between $20 and $50 per person per day, marks the transition from survival to stability and comfort. Individuals in this group, often holding stable salaried jobs in sectors such as education, public service, and retail management, can afford reliable housing, regular healthcare, and formal schooling, along with modest leisure like dining out or owning a car. In countries such as Malaysia, Brazil, and Turkey, they form the backbone of consumer economies, driving demand for appliances, travel, and services. Members of this class enjoy meaningful choices and conveniences, such as internet access, savings accounts, and access to credit. Yet their financial security still depends on steady employment. A job loss, health crisis, or major economic downturn could significantly disrupt their stability, reminding them that comfort is not yet immunity from risk. Upper middle class. The upper middle class represents a stage of lasting stability and social influence, defined by incomes well above the national median and typically earned through professional or managerial roles such as engineering, medicine, education leadership, finance, or running established businesses. In global terms, this group generally lives on $50 to $100 per person per day, placing them at the top of income-based security before reaching wealth accumulation levels. Individuals in this class can afford private healthcare, quality education, and well-furnished homes, and they regularly save for retirement or or invest in property and financial markets. Their lifestyle often includes overseas travel, personal vehicles, and an emergency fund, offering comfort and flexibility. Yet most of their wealth still depends on active work rather than passive income, meaning a major recession or job loss could still force them to scale back. The upper middle class stands at the point where stability turns into opportunity and where money begins to open doors but not yet multiply on its own. Mass affluent. The mass affluent represent the first tier of asset-backed wealth, marking the transition from income-based comfort to investment-based security. Banks and financial institutions typically define this group as households with between $100,000 and $1 million in investable assets, often paired with strong, stable incomes. People in this tier are no longer living paycheck to paycheck because their assets, whether from long-term investing, property ownership, or running a successful small business, generate supplemental income. In high-income countries such as the United States, Japan, and Singapore, this group often includes senior professionals, business executives, and high-earning dual-income households who save and invest consistently. Their lifestyle usually features private healthcare, comfortable housing, and regular travel, but not extravagant luxuries like private jets or super yachts. They enjoy security and choice, yet still pay close attention to markets, inflation, and interest rates because their money is substantial but not limitless. The mass affluent sit between the stable middle class and the financially independent, at the point where money has begun working for them, but not yet fast enough to set them free. Millionaire class. The millionaire class, formerly known as high net worth individuals or HNWI, are typically defined as anyone with $1 million or more in investable assets, excluding their primary residence. At this level, wealth spread across property, equities, and business ownership begins to create freedom rather than just comfort, as investment income can often sustain daily living costs. Members of this class are frequently senior executives, successful entrepreneurs, or long-term investors who have accumulated wealth through steady growth and strategic management. They can afford high-quality housing, international travel, and elite education, and are often offered private banking, concierge wealth services, and access to exclusive investment opportunities in major financial hubs. This tier represents genuine financial independence, where working is a choice and life decisions are guided by preference rather than necessity, though preserving wealth through market awareness, diversification, and succession planning remains essential. Multi-millionaire class. The multimillionaire class, often referred to as the very high net worth individuals, describes households with investable assets, excluding their primary residence, typically in the range of about $5 million to $30 million. At this level, wealth begins to provide deep financial security and real influence. Individuals in this tier may own multiple properties, hold major business stakes or board seats, and fund their lifestyle purely through income generated by diversified portfolios managed by private advisors or a dedicated family office. They no longer depend on a salary. In global hubs such as the United States, Switzerland, and Singapore, they often serve as industry shapers, backing startups, influencing markets, and engaging in high-level philanthropy. Their focus shifts from simply making money to actively protecting, structuring, and passing on wealth across generations. Tax planning, reputation management, and succession strategy become daily concerns. This class sits just below the ultra-wealth tier and represents a pivot point where wealth becomes a lever for power rather than merely comfort. Ultra-wealthy. The ultra-wealthy, formerly known as ultra-high net worth individuals, are defined as those holding more than $30 million in investable assets, excluding their primary residence. At this level, wealth functions as an ecosystem, actively managed by teams of financial advisors, lawyers, and accountants to preserve and expand fortunes across generations. Their capital flows through layers of global investments, including private equity, hedge funds, trusts, and real estate, enabling them to own multiple companies or even entire brands. Operating with virtually no financial constraints, they maintain luxury assets and residences in global hubs such as Dubai, London, New York, and Hong Kong, and deploy capital across borders to influence industries, shape philanthropy, and reinforce social and political ties. At this tier, the focus shifts from earning to legacy building, with tax strategy, asset protection, and reputation management becoming central to sustaining generational wealth. Billionaire class. The billionaire class, defined by a net worth exceeding $1 billion, represents the highest concentration of private wealth on the planet. At this level, money functions as a structural force capable of shaping markets, politics, and culture. Billionaires typically control vast business empires, ranging from multinational corporations and investment conglomerates to leading technology firms, giving them the ability to move stock markets, influence scientific research, and set philanthropic or political agendas. The majority of the world's billionaires are concentrated in the United States States, China, and India, with a growing number emerging in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Their daily lives are supported by full-time teams of financial strategists, legal advisors, security personnel, and logistics staff. At this stage, personal identity often merges with enterprise, as their actions and investments define entire sectors of the global economy. For the billionaire class, the central pursuit shifts from wealth accumulation to legacy building, where influence, innovation, and global impact outweigh mere financial gain. Elon Musk tier. The Elon Musk tier sits beyond even the typical centibillionaire. As of late 2025, Elon Musk's net worth is estimated at around $754 billion, making him the first person in history to exceed $500 billion of personal wealth. His fortune comes from massive ownership stakes in Tesla, SpaceX, XAI, and other companies, so his net worth can move by billions in a single trading day when markets shift. Over the past year, Elon Musk's wealth has reportedly grown by roughly $200 to $330 billion, which is about $6,000 to $10,500 every second, enough to buy roughly 4 to 7 flagship smartphones each time the clock ticks. At this scale, wealth behaves like an institution. Teams of advisors manage global stakes, trusts, and private equity across multiple countries, and a single decision or public statement from him can move markets, influence policy debates, and redirect entire industries like electric vehicles, private spaceflight, robotics, and artificial intelligence. If you like this video, subscribe for more.